Hey everyone, welcome to Lauren De Laguna. Thank you so much for being here. Tonight, I am really honored to be joined by a new friend of mine, David Beckerman. Hey, David.
Hey, how's it going?
So, David, you're an Air Force pilot, correct?
Correct. Yep. Still active duty. So I'm glad you mentioned that so we can just get the disclaimer out of the way. The thoughts and opinions that I'm going to share today are my own. They do not represent the Department of Defense, U.S. Air Force, or the U.S. government. Considering that I am a whistleblower, that's I think we could just agree that I don't I'm not in line with what's happening in the Department of Defense, and we're just gonna talk about what's going on.
Okay, great. And how long have you been in the Air Force?
So I commissioned in 2010. So now that we're in 2023, it's actually 12 and a half years. The 13th year is in May. So it was May of 2010 was when I commissioned.
And did you enlist as an officer or
Y-
enlisted?
Yeah. So that's actually the word I'm using. There's enlisting. So you can enlist in the armed services, which is signing up after high school, and then you can commission. So those are two different events. And as commissioning means you're going to go into the officer track, and that's exactly what I did right after college. I did the whole ROTC program. So while a college student, doing the ROTC, and then after you graduate, it's like a couple weeks. It's actually for me, it was the next day. I graduated on May 10th. I commissioned on May 11th,
Oh,
and then it was
wow.
yeah. It took about 2 weeks before what they do is enter you to active duty. Some guys wait like 2 months, maybe even longer. For me, it was literally like 2 weeks. I very much entered the Air Force as a cadet, and for the military guys that are listening, they'll understand what that means. It was, I didn't have a break from college. It was college, 2 weeks. I'm at my first training assignment, and I was like, "Whoa, this was fast."
Wow. And okay,
Yeah,
so when you first went into the military, like I don't know if did you do a basic training?
something like that. It's the officer route's a little different. We do, I think,
OTS.
something like that. OTS is like 12 weeks. The basic I think is 8 weeks. It might be longer now. But for officers, we go to this thing called field training. And also depends on how you commission. There's three ways. There's the academies, ROTC, or like you mentioned, OTS. And then each one of those commissioning sources has something to the effect of field training. And for us, it was like a
Okay.
4 week or 6 week program. I forget exactly, but it's similar in nature. We do we get gassed while we're there. We're running around doing the whole nine, getting yelled at. I wouldn't call it basic, probably a little bit easier than basic. The enlisted guys will say so at least. But similar. Yeah, something like that.
Um okay, was there a day because I actually went to the academy, the Air Force Academy, and
Okay.
there was a day where they lined us all up and they gave us all the vaccines and if you didn't have proof of a
Yeah.
vaccine, they gave it to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So, did you go through that?
Yeah, I did. I did. They they call it the stick 'em and poke or like roll up. I forget exactly what it's called, the whole thing. But the vaccine line, the way it plays out for me was actually at field training at this training event. And you literally just go, you roll up your sleeve and they just go up down the line, and you have folks on either side of you, and you just literally like a factory. You step in front of one guy, shot, step in front of the other guy, shot, step in front of the third. I you know Actually, you bring up a good point because this is a good conversation to have, um, with like mandates and what did we sign up for? There's this idea that when you sign the dotted line or when you join the military, that you give up your rights. Nowhere, nowhere in the oath does it say that. I mean, it's kind of ludicrous to even think like, "Hey, I am swearing an oath to the Constitution to support and defend the Constitution, but I'm going to give up my constitutional rights to do so." What rights
Do
did I give
you
up?
do you not is
No,
that not do you not
no,
switch from, like, constitutional
no.
to UCMJ?
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't. No, you don't lose your constitutional rights by signing up to be an officer or enlisted to be a service member. You don't lose your rights. It actually it's interesting. Another interesting topic you're bringing up too. I mean, um, a lot of the mandate, people don't realize how illegal it actually was, and what the legal violations were, and we can jump into that here, as we have this conversation. But when the military came out and said, we're going to issue you paperwork for failure to obey a lawful order, Article 92 violation. I've never gotten in trouble in my life in the military, right? So I started looking into, what is an Article 92 violation? What does that mean? So Article 92 is actually failure to obey a superior officer. And then it references in the UCMJ, it references Article 90. So Article 90 is where they define what a legal order is. And there's 5 elements to a lawful order. I have most of them kind of in my head because I've talked about this before. The first thing is all orders are assumed to be lawful. I mean, because we're the military, right? Like you kind of assume that if your superior commander is giving you an order, that they did their homework, that they're not sending you to your death, or that what they're asking you to do is in fact lawful. The second thing, or I think part of that first element, is as long as that person has the authority, right? So in the Air Force specifically, like being a commander means that you have the legal authority to give out orders. Not every officer can say, "Hey, monkey, jump, jump this high." Like I might say that, but that no one's going to listen to me, right? Unless I'm an actual commander, and then it's more like, "Hey, I want you guys here at this time. This is what we're doing." Then that's just by me saying it, right? That's like I'm ordering you to be here. One of the other thing is that if I disobey an order, you do so at your own peril. So the person disobeying the order is doing so like there's no time to debate, essentially, is what the idea is, because it's the military. A, I'm giving you the order. B, if you refuse, you do it at your own peril, because the idea is, we're in the battle and I'm ordering you to take the hill. I don't have time for you to sit there and talk back to me, right? The third element is only a military judge can determine the legalities. So if you're in, meaning that you have to find yourself in front of a military judge to have that conversation. It's not going to be with your commander. I forget the fourth element, but the fifth element is the most important in my eyes. It says, a legal order can't contradict the Constitution or statutory rights. So this idea, so it's right there in the UCMJ. So this idea that we give up our rights and we're U.S. property as soon as we, raise our right hand, it's frankly false, and it's lazy. It's intellectually lazy to say, oh, you're just a tool now. I mean, even on the George Washington Monument. Go ahead.
Yeah, do you think that first line of vaccines was just as unconstitutional as the COVID one that they asked you to get?
Yeah, it's a good question. And on the surface, no, right? Those were all licensed vaccines. They meet the definition of vaccine, and I'll jump into what I mean by that. They went through the licensure process. Not that the FDA is, not that they've never had their drugs recalled. Just because the FDA granted a licensure doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's blessed. The FDA at the end of the day answers to the government, their regulatory agency. So
okay, before we get into the legal stuff, I actually want to go through. No, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for being here too. I do want to go, like, what is your story? So you had 2000. What year you said? 2010?
2010, yeah, yep.
When you became an officer right after ROTC, you went through the lineup of sticks, and then and then when was your first issue with the military? When did that happen?
I mean, fast forward to the mandate, really. Look, everybody has some kind of rub with the bureaucratic machine, right? So let's talk about my background. So I commissioned in 2010. I go straight to pilot training. I go through that process. I make it out of pilot training, which is in itself a difficult task to do, especially the Air
Yeah,
Force train.
very.
And then
Mhm.
I went to go, I flew the C-130s in Japan. I did a little bit of they rerouted me to MQ-9s, which is drones, RPAs, whatever you want to call them, which was super rewarding gig, actually. I went dragging my feet because, I signed up to fly, not to be a computer jockey. But it was a very rewarding gig, and I actually really appreciated my time there. But I did find my way back to an airplane, and I ended up in a tanker. So, which is very unusual career for the Air Force pilot. Air Force pilot, like, we tried to become a master in one aircraft.
Mm.
From my side of the house, it's co-pilot, aircraft commander, instructor, evaluator. I had all these different. I'm the new guy in every assignment, so I don't get that depth, right? I have a lot of breadth, sure. Let's go fly low levels in the C-130. We'll do airdrops. We'll shoot, what are the R9s? I forget what the rockets were called, but I'm not going to embarrass myself. But we'll
You're
shoot
like a
missiles
jack
up.
of all trades, but the master of none.
Yeah, right. So when it came time to the second half of the Air Force career, like, even for somebody that stayed in one airplane, the second half of an officer career, like the first. So when I say second half, I mean pilots get signed up for 10, to make it to retirement's 20. You fly the first 10 years because they give you free training. The second half, they typically try to get the officer out of you. So you go into more administrative roles, executive roles, and less of an operational side, like less of a pilot, less of a flyer, and more of like a middle manager. Um,
Mm.
that's not how I wanted my second half to go. Especially with all of the rocky, like the fact that I'm in three different places. I'm learning three different airplanes. I'm a brand new guy everywhere I go. I don't grow enough to really have a healthy like a second half. So I switched. Technically I switched careers. I still keep my wings, but I started. I went to go get my master's, and I learned French to become a what we call a foreign area officer, and
Mm.
they were going to send me to Africa. So it was here in California that the issues started happening, where it's like, hey, what you guys are doing is illegal. I don't understand how you were able to make this a lawful order. You can't just violate the law. And since I've graduated all my trainings in May of 2022, I've been stuck in California.
Okay.
I'm sitting on the sidelines collecting a paycheck. So my personal story, isn't that compelling, to be honest. We have a lot of people that were injured by the vaccine. We have people that were kicked out. We have people. I know a cadet that's
Yeah,
literally
so
homeless.
can we
Homeless. So
start
yeah,
so you had what was the order? So can you tell me, so 2020
yeah,
happened, we had COVID, and then the vaccine was invented. Then what was the order? Was the order only for Air Force, or was it for all of
yeah.
the yeah.
Yeah, sure. So the Secretary of Defense issued out a mandate on August 24th of 2021. So prior to then, all the vaccines that were available, it was very obvious that they were emergency use authorized, and EUA. I'm going to refer to it as EUA from now. Hopefully, people understand that. As an EUA, legally speaking, and this is when we can get into the law a little bit, but legally speaking, that it's to be granted EUA means that it's unlicensed and unapproved, right? So what they did, though, and I'll get into why I'm taking this detour. August 23rd of 2021, the day before the military mandate, uh, the FDA came out and stated that Pfizer got their biologic license application approved. It was BLA 125742. That was the application. And they said it got approved. We're good. It's going to get licensed. The problem with that approval is if you actually go look at the application that was submitted on August 23rd and look at the start and end date, it ended on August 23rd. So that application was valid for
Mm.
one day. Yeah, wild, right? we didn't understand. We were like, there's no way this thing is good for one day. This has to be a typo. Maybe we're not
Mm,
understanding what we're reading. But they updated it again on December 22nd and a third time on May 18th, and it was done differently, where the end date was blank. So
mm,
all this to say that by the time the military or Secretary Austin issued the mandate on August 24th, there was no approved product. You know what I mean? The application was expired, and
okay.
his order specifically stated, "I am mandating the fully licensed vaccine. You can
Mm,
volunteer to comply with the mandate with the unlicensed emergency use authorized version." And then, off they went, right? That was like, here's the order, go get the licensed one, and you can volunteer for the EUA. Comma, however, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, on September 13th, whatever the math is on that, I think it's 2.5 weeks, uh, NIH comes out, makes a statement, Pfizer, NIH together, makes a statement saying that even though it got approved, BLA 125742, and there's these things called national drug codes, NDCs. So I don't want to get like too technical, but NDCs, think of them as like social security numbers. You
okay.
can't. Lot numbers are one thing, NDCs are another. An NDC, it's a unique identifier. So
For
the
each,
N
like, vial of vaccine, is that what
for
it's for?
the lot numbers are for each vial. The NDCs is for the product. Like,
Okay.
so, Comirnaty is the product that was approved. There was 3 different NDCs.
Mm,
Um, Pfizer comes out and says, we're not making them.
mm.
We're not making them while we have the EUA version. So that day that they said that was the same day I was ordered to get vaccinated with a fully licensed product. And so you're ordering me. So the Secretary of Defense says only the fully licensed can be mandated. I'm getting an order on the 13th of September saying go get vaccinated. The same day that that's happening, Pfizer's stating, "Hey, we're not going to make the fully licensed version," and you're like, "Okay." So he's saying this, they're saying that. How are you giving me this order, like I must comply order to go get vaccinated? With
So
what?
you were ordered to get the fully licensed one.
Right.
Pfizer's saying, "We're only gonna make the not fully licensed
Yeah.
one."
Yeah. Yeah.
And the order says you can comply with this order by getting this not licensed one,
Yeah.
but the order only requires that you get the licensed one.
Yes. Yeah. And so I told this to my commander. I said, "Hey, there are no licensed vaccines anywhere in the US." And that's still
Mm.
true to this day. To this day, they never produced a licensed version. It's why we still have an emergency. It's
Oh,
why
wow.
Yeah. So HHS just renewed the emergency on January 11th, the same day that Dr. Offit is criticizing the bivalence version, and also the same day that the entire federal aviation fleet is grounded because of a NOTAM failure. So it's like, I don't know if they're doing these things, like the FAA being grounded. That the last time that's happened was 9/11. So
Mhm,
I
right.
don't I don't know if that was coincidental, or if they're doing that to bury the news of the emergency declaration being renewed.
Mm,
Because you think, oh, why is it being renewed? It's one thing to state we're in a steady state emergency. It's another thing to advertise that they're constantly renewing the emergency.
right, right,
Yeah, I don't know.
right. Okay, so ever since that mandate happened, you had friends who you're in a lawsuit and it's a group lawsuit, correct?
Yeah.
And you
So
have people in that lawsuit who both took it and
yeah,
got injured, and also people who didn't take it and were
yeah,
penalized. So can you tell me about let's start with the people who didn't take it. Can you tell me a couple of their stories and how they're being penalized by the
sure.
military?
Sure. Yeah. There's one in particular early on, one service member in particular early on that was very, I don't know if influential is the right word, but
Mm,
he had an impact because of what he did. So his name is Lieutenant Billy Mosley. And so what Lieutenant Billy Mosley does is he straight up refuses the vaccine, the order. And what I mean by straight up refuser is, a lot of folks went and submitted a religious accommodation because that was the option. Either go get vaccinated, submit an exemption, either medical or religious, or we're going to penalize you. And you're like, well, these are
Mm.
terrible options. I mean, what
Right. Yeah.
these are awful options. By the way, you still don't have a fully licensed product, so how can I go do this anyway? So Billy was one of those guys that said, well, it's not a legal order, so I'm not going to do any of this stuff.
Mm.
His case went all the way to what they call a board of inquiry. So a board of
Mm.
inquiry, it's for separations. It's the administrative process for separations. He had an attorney represent him in a civilian. Well, actually, he's a guardsman or reservist, but he's not active duty, not a full-time guy.
Okay.
His attorney Davis Yuntz represented him in this case to stay in the military because we all want to serve. The military tells this story that we're a bunch of clowns just refusing the order to get out of the military, and the reality couldn't be further from the truth. We want to finish our career, and we also want to comply with the law. When we're seeing the law being violated, we have questions, and when the entire system pushes back against you, I mean, the inspections, the inspector general complaints don't go anywhere. The Article 138, so the actual UCMJ complaints, they don't go anywhere.
Mm.
They're denying all of the religious accommodations, blanket denials all the way through.
Wow,
And
that's terrible. Even for like priests and rabbis in the military.
the chaplains, we call them chaplains. The chaplains filed a lawsuit on this very topic because the chaplains were getting their religious accommodations denied.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. Does any part of you think the powers that be realized a certain demographic were refusing the vaccine, and that demographic coincidentally overlapped with the demographic that they wanted to get rid of?
I know where you're going with this, and I will answer that. I want to finish the Billy story real
Okay.
quick. So Billy goes to the hearing. Davis Yuntz represents him.
Mm.
3-0 unanimous decision to keep him in.
Oh, great.
All of the entire panel and the judge advocate overseeing the hearing were stunned at the information that they were presented. So the judge actually said, wait a minute, you're telling me that this order has been unlawful, that I've been telling these guys to get vaccinated with an unlicensed product? And we're like, yeah, it doesn't exist. This is verifiable. I don't know why this is a contentious issue. I mean, you can go to the pharmacy today, ask for Comirnaty. That's the name of they say the brand name, but U.S. law, we don't have brand names. It's either the licensed product or not.
Okay.
You go ask for Comirnaty or you go ask for Spikevax, and you can't find it. It doesn't exist in the pharmacies. I just did this 2 weeks ago. I went to go ask for Comirnaty or Spikevax. The pharmacist looked at me like I had 10 heads. Never heard of it. Never heard of those products. That's a problem.
And those are the only two licensed vaccines for COVID?
Yeah, Comirnaty has license number 2229, and Spikevax has license number 2256.
Are they owned by Pfizer and Moderna?
Pfizer has Comirnaty, and Moderna has Spikevax. They play all these word games. You know what I mean? Like Pfizer got approved. Well, Pfizer, the company, has two drugs. They have Pfizer. The full name of their vaccine is Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine, and then the other one's Comirnaty. And then Moderna, same grift. They have the Moderna vaccine, and they have. So when you name the vaccine, the same name as the company, and then you go and tell people Moderna got approved, what do people think? They think the company got approval, but they think the Moderna vaccine got approved. But the reality, like I said, it's Comirnaty and Spikevax that got approved.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and that's malicious in your opinion that they have these two vaccines.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I'm saying that. If I can still answer your other question too, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're asking me, do the demographics overlap? It was a lot of Christians. Saying filing religious accommodations based on fetal cells in the vaccines. Pro-life and all this stuff. I mean, me being Jewish, I I mentioned the principles of my body is my temple. I'm not going to put in poison into my body. And the Torah talks about actually, like the greater good and getting vaccinated for the community. Um, there was some rabbis saying why it's important to get vaccinated, and then you get two Jews in a room, you get three opinions. You had another set of rabbis saying why you shouldn't, because the product, we don't really know if it's safe. Like the idea behind vaccines is to protect against diseases. This vaccine isn't doing that. So like, why are we doing big pharma's bidding? Why are we just injecting ourselves and not asking the questions? So you had a group of rabbis saying okay, you had a group of rabbis saying no. And
And
look,
then
it's
also, doesn't it affect, I don't know if you know this at all, but for women, doesn't it affect menstruation, which is a very big deal for the Jewish faith, specifically,
exactly,
or
exactly.
Orthodox?
Yeah, so I mean, not being a doctor, right? I know what you know. I just read what's available online. But yeah, there's reports saying it affects menstrual cycles. There's reports saying that it affects men's sperm count. So, I mean, either way, you want to call this a depopulation event or you want to call it a bioweapon, doesn't there's so many things that's a we're getting in the weeds when we have those conversations. I mean, you zoom out, it's simply, look, the government lied about having a licensed product and then mandated an unlicensed version. You can just stop at that lie. You don't have to look for why they did it, or try to connect dots that aren't really there. I mean, they broke the law and we filed a lawsuit. We'll see what comes out of it, and we'll find out whether it does all these things, if it's really damaging people's immune system or it's damaging reproductive organs. But for now, uh, a fully licensed vaccine was mandated. The big pharma said they weren't going to make it. People went and got injected thinking they were getting a fully licensed product. And today we have, a rise in a
Medically.
climate, medical issues, and also all cause morality. For the unexplained rise in all cause morality.
So,
So
okay, so
you have to wonder.
with that reservist who won 3-0, did he receive like any? First of all, was he penalized along the way? Was like he not allowed
Oh,
to
100%,
participate in
100%.
things? And then was he reimbursed somehow by the military,
No.
or was he given his job back or reinstated back to?
I spoke with him late last week, and this conversation actually didn't come up
Okay.
about what he's up to. Yeah, I think he's still serving, but I don't know in what capacity. So to even get to that hearing, he would have had to have been punished, right? So, and
Right.
that's exactly what the military was doing. I mean, that was the last piece, or the last stop on this pain train, if you will, of the retribution. Like, first, it's, hey, you're getting counseled because you refused the lawful order. Hey, you're counseled because now we can't deploy you. Hey, you're violating a lawful order, so we're going to move to separate you because now you're, as a military member who can't follow orders, they don't want you, right? That makes sense. That makes sense. So the board of inquiry was supposed to be his exit, but when the evidence was presented, and I've done this a few times now when I talk to people like like adults, right? Where we're not making it you suck because you want me to get vaccinated, or you know getting all heated about the medical. When we specifically stick to the law and go, hey, look, this is what happened. People are more open to understanding the problem and then realizing, like, wait, the government lied. What are we doing? And that's what happened in that hearing.
So
They presented the facts. That's all that happened.
what happened with? So you're in a large lawsuit, and you're saying there's
Yeah.
also people involved in the lawsuit who did get vaccinated and had some sort of effects. Do you have any stories about those people?
So yeah, it's kind of sad actually, the way things played out. A lot of the lawsuits, a lot of the early lawsuits, were specifically making RFRA claims. So for the audience that's not familiar with RFRA, it's Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So basically, right, they do the unlawful order. They tell you to go to submit a religious accommodation. Then they deny all of them. The few that they were approving were for guys already leaving the military.
Mm.
So a lot of the early lawsuits were, First Amendment constitutional claims, because it was easy, right? It's like, oh, religious accommodations, people can get behind that. Nobody really wanted to have the licensure conversation. It's still a tough conversation to have today. People just don't want to hear it. Well, what do you mean? It's the same formula. They can be used interchangeably, which are all lies too.
There's something about it, even though you're clearly very sane, clearly very educated, know what you're talking about. There's something about when you dig into the weeds about these
Yeah,
nuances that sounds a little bit tinfoil hatty, a little bit
yeah,
Alex Jonesy.
yeah,
Like, not your
yeah,
fault.
yeah,
It isn't. It's just like you're mentioning NPR 3758. Like
yeah,
people are
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is that? But then when you mention, okay, Moderna has two vaccines, one is called Moderna, one is called, you know,
Spikevax. Yeah,
Spikevax,
yeah,
and you're saying Spikevax is approved, but then they're saying Moderna is approved, so everybody's getting this Moderna
yeah.
non-approved product. That makes sense, but it's also
Yeah,
simultaneously does sound conspiratorial because you're also saying these military judges who have been forcing these order on our men, on our troops, have are only when they dig into the weeds of a lawsuit that's in front of them, realizing that distinction and realizing that difference. And so
that's
many
that's
people
how
are aware.
that's how persuasive the this marketing campaign was. And so I'll answer the vaccine guys real quick, and then we'll talk about what you just mentioned. Um, the no one was taking them in. No one, because it's like it's just a difficult. What are you after? I'm not being the legal person. This is outside of my realm a little bit, but I do know that a lot of the lawsuits and even the religious claims, by the way, the religious lawsuits didn't were turning away the vaccinated, because the whole premise of that lawsuit was, I am not getting vaccinated because of my religious beliefs. So then
Mm,
the military would deny. So you deny the original appeal, deny the initial request, and then they would deny the appeal. And then after the appeal is denied, you have no more options. And they say either you voluntary separate, which, by the way, people would, and then get the voluntary separation denied. Either you voluntary separate, you go get vaccinated, or you get punished. Some people didn't want to separate. Some people didn't want to get punished, so they went and got vaccinated. So now you're saying that it's against your religious beliefs, but you're going to go get it to keep your job, to get a paycheck. So a lot of the attorneys didn't want those guys. You know what I mean?
mm,
But those people were coerced. They had no, they felt like they had no option, so they went and did
yeah.
it. Some of them are injured, some of them regret it. And right now, okay, speaking of the regretfuls, the mandate's over,
Hmm.
and right now, there's the regretfuls are getting angsty, right? Because in their mind, they're thinking, I could have waited this out. I didn't have to do this injection that I didn't
Mm,
want to get. So now they're getting, it's really just the entire mandate really upset the good order and principle in the military. But the vaccine injured had nowhere to go. So this lawsuit that I'm a part of, they took them all in. They, whether you filed a religious accommodation or not, or you took the vaccine or not, doesn't matter, because the lawsuit's making constitutional claims, First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, maybe. I don't quote me on this, but essentially they're going after the licensure issue. Like, hey, you fraudulent, you lied to these people, and they went and got injected with this unlicensed product when you mandated a fully licensed product. So yeah, it's a big one. I mean, we're more than 700 people, um, and the legal team has a couple of lawsuits under their belt. Actually, they had to do one for the Coast Guard specifically, because it's Department of Homeland Security, one for the
mm.
Department of Defense, and they're spinning up another one right now. I don't want to get into give away the game, spill the beans, but and that's just the military lawsuits. That's not the other lawsuits that they have representing, doctors and other people in society that were felt they had no choice and got coerced or lost their job, or things of that
Does
nature.
this law firm like receive donations? Is there any, if you want Henry to look up this firm for any
Yeah,
link,
let
so tell Henry and we'll put the link in the
sure.
and pin it.
let me check in with them after,
Oh,
and
okay.
we can
We'll
put it
put
in
it in
the
the
we.
comments after.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just before I give away something that they don't want. I mean, I know donations comes up a lot for these guys, and it's not something they're interested in
Oh,
typically.
really?
Yeah, I mean they're just happy to do the job. You know what I mean? But
Wow.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
really difficult. I mean, it's a lot of work to represent 700 plaintiffs and then to not ask for donations. That's pretty how are they doing that? How
We're
many attorneys are on this team?
yeah, so there's like less, I think like a handful, and I mean right now, we're kind of we're supporting them with our donations internally, like we're
Hmm.
doing it in house, because
Wow.
the team is busting their backs for us, but we haven't went externally. It just didn't seem like a thing that was necessary at the time.
Wow. How long has your lawsuit been going on?
It was filed on May 23rd, 2021, like two or 3 days after I graduated from language school, and shortly after I was. Or shortly before I was kicked off my base. So I've just been kind of, hanging out, waiting for the lawsuit to do its thing.
Yeah, what has your personal punishment been like?
Yeah, really, really, I'm kind of that guy that keeps touching the fire. You know what I mean? Or keeps
Mhm.
touching the stove to realize it's hot. Um, in the beginning, before the lawsuit was filed, we had a lot of we all got the vaccinated troops got connected. We all kind of found each other. And one of the people that was involved in those support groups was a military attorney. And that individual was kept telling us like, hey, don't rock the boat.
Like
Be
a JAG
the
guy?
Yeah, like a JAG. Yeah, exactly. And that JAG officer was telling us, don't rock the boat. Be the professionals that you've been this entire time. Like, make it hard for the military to punish you. Like that is your goal. Make it hard because from that person's perspective, they saw that this was an unlawful order, and that it was all going to come out in the end, right? Unfortunately for me, I'm impatient, and I am. What's frustrating to me and why I'm impatient and why I'm the type to like touch the stove and realize it's hot is because like the bubble burst for me. You know what I mean? This is the military. This is my commander is supposed to give good orders, supposed to understand
Right.
what he's doing, right? Every time I brought this issue to him, he said, legal cleared it. I'm just following orders, right? Like just
Do
abdicating
you
his
think he was okay? Because the order wasn't your commander, right? Like, he was ordered
Yeah,
to
it
go
came
do that.
exactly. It came from all
So,
the way up top.
he if he had not required you to do it, he would have gotten in trouble. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Is there
Nailed it.
any commander that stood up like, is there any commander that's part of your lawsuit that didn't require his men to get vaccinated and therefore he's getting reprimanded? Or did every single commander cave and push it onto their men?
There was a I don't know all the people on the lawsuit, right? Because it's not like I'm talking to everybody. We're all in our own respective dwellings and doing our own thing and just kind of supporting the legal team however we can. Um, but I do know of a few individuals, a few commanders that said no. One guy, there was a report about a Navy 06, so a Navy captain, who after injuring some of his sailors was like, I can't do this. There was an Army lieutenant colonel
Wait,
battalion
some of the people got injured in, like, his platoon?
or his unit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was early. I forget all the details of that already because it was so many years. It was like that was early 2021. Billy would know. That's Billy being in the Navy, he would know better. But I just bumped into Lieutenant Colonel Brad Miller.
Hmm.
He was an Army battalion commander, and he I mean, you're talking about a leader, right?
Right, yeah.
This guy resigned his commission. That's
Wow.
Yes. 19 years in, I heard him speak today. 19 years, 3 months, and 15 days. I think he mentioned today in one of the Twitter spaces.
Did he
So
lose his 20-year, like,
yeah,
retirement?
I mean, you resign. A resign is like as if
Oh,
you never
no.
served. Yeah. So his stance was, I don't agree with this as a commander. I don't agree with this. I can't ask my troops to do this. And he resigned.
And if he were to like re-enlist or become an officer, recommission,
Who knows?
who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is he a part of your lawsuit? Do you know?
I'm actually not sure. I never asked him the question. I don't think so. I don't think so. I know a handful of the guys. I know because there's like there's a certain group of individuals that feel very comfortable speaking out. This by the way isn't normal. Like, it's not normal for active duty officers to jump in these podcasts, to go on, to get on, to try to get on national
very
TV,
true.
to try to, like, we for a year we did everything we could internally, and it took us a long time to even come to this conclusion that, like, it's not going to happen internally.
There's a lot of rules about being in the military and coming onto media, isn't there? What are those rules?
Oh, it's like you have to be on leave. It has to be on your own time. You can't be in uniform, and then all this typical stuff still applies, like the things that you can't talk about, right? Because I'm here. You know that I'm a military officer, and so the idea is just that I am not representing the military, that my words I'm not speaking for the Department of Defense, and that, like, I'm staying away from politics or bashing, commanders, or, saying this guy's an idiot or something like that. We can't say things. Those are the things we have to avoid.
Like, would you even be allowed to critique, like, for instance, the president right now?
No, no. So the way we do that is the administration, the current administration, the Biden's administration. You can't, when you talk about the administration and not the individual, you're pretty much, you stay.
But you said earlier that you don't lose your constitutional rights, but isn't that a loss of your First Amendment right if you can't critique the president of the United States, even when you're off duty?
We still have rules, right? So just like no one's limiting my vote, I can't. It's not like I'm allowed to go vote. I don't lose that right. We don't talk about politics at the unit. It's bad for business. We're supposed to be a apolitical institution, and all of this, the mandate really made things political. And look, I can go buy a weapon, right? I can exercise my Second Amendment right, but the base absolutely can stop me at the gate to make sure I don't bring weapons onto the base. And same thing, like, at the end of the day, the president's the commander in chief. I might not like the guy that's up there. I'm not saying I don't like Biden. I'm saying I don't like the guy that's up there. But at the end of the day, it's the commander in chief, and as the commander in chief, that is the chain of command. And because it's a chain of command, I think it's like an Article 89 violation, disrespect of a superior officer. So it's not like they're limiting my speech. I can still, exercise my opinions, but there's some there's a little bit of rules, and that's acceptable. I wear the uniform. I can accept that, but yeah, telling me I got to inject myself with an unlicensed product, that's where we draw the line. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of trying to maybe limit speech a little bit, as I was talking about earlier, and as you mentioned, there's that demographic of Christians with that overlap with the people who are refusing to get vaccinated. But there's also, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of many others, conservatives seem to be more, resistant of getting the vaccine than.
Yeah.
So do you think that might be, in your opinion, has the military thought about that and purposely kind of pushed this to persuade people of a certain thought out?
It's very possible. I mean, we'll have these conversations behind closed doors and amongst the peers, like, hey, speculation's a sport, especially among military guys. We love to speculate. And we'll have those conversations amongst ourselves, like, hey, man, this is strange. Or, don't forget that it was Obama during the Obama administration when we had the whole sequestration event, and we lost a lot of senior leaders then. And a lot of the senior leaders that got cut were folks that pushed back on the Obama administration, And so who knows what whether it was intentional or not, whether it was right leaning or not, like it's complicated because in the military we follow orders, right? And a lot of people thought they were doing the right thing. I'm simply following orders. So while there is an overlap, of the Christian conservative religious group, it's not everybody is like that, and it's a neat overlap. It's clean, but at the end of the day, it's a lot of the critical thinkers, a lot of the people that have like, don't they know themselves, right? So they're like true to themselves, right? They're not freaking out about, oh, it's a lawful order, I got to go follow it. I got to do this because, what I'm trying to get at is a lot of the folks that said no, I don't know all their reasons, but we have a few folks that did it because, of constitutional reasons. I'm defending the Constitution. A few folks did it, because of religious reasons. Some did it for medical reasons. Doesn't matter what category you fall into at the end of the day. As long as people are trying to do the right thing, that's really the focus. And again, I personally, I don't want to make it about politics. Is it about politics? Mm-hmm. Probably. It's like I said, it's a clean overlap, but there's other things going on from where I'm sitting, and really, if you're,
you don't think the military is becoming like a bit woke, specifically the officer brass?
Yeah. There's definitely we are seeing that, right? We are seeing so I'll bite a little bit. All right. We are seeing that, like the academies, for example, don't say mom and dad, right? Parental unit or whatever. The Marines are getting away from sir, ma'am, at basic training, which is wild. Our we call it a tongue and quill. So this regulation, it's an old manual. I don't think in my 12 years I've never seen it updated, and I might just not be paying attention. But it's the manual that guides our writing, like how to write a memo, the formatting. Like it's been around forever, right? It's like I said, I don't think I've seen this thing update. However, I think within the last 2 years there was an amendment to this regulation that allowed you to add your pronouns to your email signature block. Right, so things like that are happening. So what the better conversation here, and I think what you're getting at, is that the military, and it actually, let's go this way. The military is lost their focus on war fighting. Okay, and the military exists for one reason and one reason only. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are about, war and death and killing, other whatever. That is the purpose of the military. We're not a peace institution, peacekeeping institution. I mean, of course we have, homeland defense and all that stuff, but the military exists for when politics break down. Department of State does the politicking, does the peacekeeping, right? The military comes in when all that fails. We go to war, and that is what the focus is supposed to be on. But we've lost our focus on war fighting, and we're like focusing on the wrong things. And this is when you have, this idea that, we're getting rid of conservatives or we're getting rid of critical thinkers. Because where does that come from? Well, our biggest recruiting pool, comes from the southeast region of the world, of the not of the world, of the country. Of the country.
Right? The world, could you imagine?
Yeah. Bring it all in. No, the southern border, we're bringing them all in. But
right.
Another topic for another day. No, so that area is our biggest recruiting center. I think more than like 50% or more than 50% come from that part of the country,
which tend to be conservative and tend to be,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So of course, those folks aren't getting vaccinated. My girlfriend was living in South Carolina during the lockdowns and everything, and she tells me the lockdowns basically didn't exist, right? Like everybody, so it wasn't a problem in those countries, in those states, right? And So when you're walking away towards woke policies and away from conservative or away from religious values, not I'm not saying the military is a religious conservative institution, but a large pool of the recruiting pool comes from that background. And so,
Right.
when you're doing those things, you're basically you're ostracizing them. You're turning them away. And that's where we're at today. This is another topic, right? The military's retention rates are in the gutter.
And the
Our
recruitment.
recruitment, okay, awesome. You're up to you're following along with our shenanigans, with our situation. Not only that, okay, that's a problem, but we also have generational families that are telling their kids not to sign up, right? So that's like
Mm,
my grandfather, my dad served, my grandfather, my great grandfather. Those families are who all they know is military service. They're walking away from the military, and that might be problems that we're not seeing, like a year or two down the line. Like the 18-year-olds right now, sure, that those kids of those multi-generational families not joining this year. But what about those families? Their 16-year-old kid or their 15-year-old kid or their 14-year-old kid. That's recruitment like 4 or 5 years from now that we potentially could miss.
right.
We have guys like Lieutenant Colonel Brad Miller, guys that are getting awarded the 06 position, colonel or captain, that are walking away from that promotion, which is a big deal. Like to make it
Yeah.
to 06, you should be happy if you make it to 05. 18, it takes 18 years to make it to 05 on average. So lieutenant colonel, commander, right? That's like a healthy career. If you can make it to 05 and a commander and retire at 20, you've had a great career. Colonel, you start making it to colonel, you start making it to your stars, getting stars on your shoulder. That now you're going to the exceptional arena, right? And so the guys, the guys that are getting awarded colonel, they're saying no thanks. They're walking away. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What do you know what the highest brass is that's left over this issue?
No, I don't. I really don't. I mean, there's a couple of retired, like what's interesting about the flag officers. I bring this up. It's not like a main talking point for most. It's kind of irrelevant, but to me, it needs to be said. The flag officers now, the 1 stars, 2 stars, 3 stars, all of those generals and admirals, they would have been majors and lieutenant colonels during anthrax. Okay, so they would have been pushing all of this back during anthrax, and then they stayed in the military. They did what they were told. They made it through sequestration. Remember, Obama? It's you can be a general for 20 years. It's like a whole nother career. It takes 20 years to make it to lieutenant colonel around. And then once you start into that upper echelon, colonel and above, it can be another 20 years.
Right.
So anthrax was in 2001. I mean, I looked some of these guys up. They were majors and lieutenant colonels back then. And so if they were active duty back then they would have made it through sequestration. They would have, you know what I mean? So like, we initially had anthrax, which was the same thing. They mandated an unlicensed EUA. Anthrax was the first emergency use authorization.
And anthrax is a vaccine?
Virus and a vaccine. Yeah, they made
Okay.
They made an anthrax vaccine. Back then, it was the anthrax
To
vaccination.
prevent like anthrax poisoning?
Yeah. To yes, to like get ahead of it, right? Because of the anthrax scares in 2001. I
Okay.
actually got injected with 8 anthrax shots, and so I have no idea what they put in my body. Yeah,
Well, damn.
yeah, yeah,
You could be like the dog tester for like a male. Oh yeah, this is anthrax. I'll be fine. That's gonna.
yeah. But yeah, they made it like a yearly requirement. It's super
Oh
frustrating.
gosh, that
Yeah.
can't be healthy.
Well, I mean, they're trying to do the same thing with COVID. They're trying to make it a yearly requirement. You know what I mean? So now to replace the traditional live virus vaccines with the mRNA stuff. Um, but I lost the ball there. We were talking about well, yeah, the
We're talking
generals,
about
the
brass.
generals, yeah.
Hmm.
So they would have made it through the anthrax days. They would have made it through sequestration, Obama's sequestration, and now they're the flag officers today pushing these orders. So whether they whether they know, whether they didn't know, like, no, it's a good old boys club up
So
there.
these are the ones beaten into submission. Like the only way that you're gonna make it to have a star on your shoulder
Yeah.
is if you've been bending the knee the entire time and you've
Yeah.
been forcing your men to bend the knee the entire time. So and it's so that's why the military has those ones because they know those are going to be the guys that have been
I'll
bending the knee their entire
I'll
career.
let you say that point, but yes. So,
Well, I mean,
and
you don't have to say it, but like when
yeah,
you look at meetings with like General Milley and Austin, and they're saying all of these woke things, and they're talking about willy nilly sending our men to Ukraine, and they are talking about using military funds to give our men, gender transitioning surgeries,
yeah,
which will cause permanent medical ailments for the rest of
yeah.
their lives. So it just seems very odd, and it just seems like all of the top brass now have become on this uniform woke agenda. And I did have when I was only at the academy for 2 years, and while I was there, we were learning the difference between equity and equality. And we had Black only spaces. And we had all of that wokeness. And that was in 2012,
Yeah.
13. So, I wonder how woke it's gotten. And it's been
I
crazy.
By the way, I totally forgot that there's a chat. I just I just saw it just now. Looking at all the comments. Maybe we can get some support to see.
Yeah. Henry, I did not mean to do that. Henry, would you like to pull up some questions? Yeah, so U-Haul wants to thank you for serving,
Thanks.
or surveying. Joe Cool likes you. He's a cool person. He has,
Nice.
uh, okay, all right. Thank you, Carson. When I need my back covered, I don't want a soldier thinking about his or her neo-fascist beliefs. Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, make sure that you come with questions too. If they government licensed it, I'm guessing he'd
Yeah,
have done it as ordered.
that's an interesting topic. So just now you brought up a lot of interesting points too. You brought up I'll try to juggle them all real quick.
Take your time. We're not on a time limit.
Oh,
This
great.
isn't
Okay, I
cool.
thought we were like
Yeah.
only on an hour. Okay,
No, do
cool.
what you want to do, man. This is
All right.
your interview.
Yeah, so if it was licensed, I guess it would be different. At the end of the day, Joe, like a lot of the folks still have their religious beliefs, whether it's licensed or not. For me personally, like I did a little bit of everything. I did the medical exemption, I did the religious accommodation, I pointed out the legal inconsistencies, all the legal violations. If they had licensed it, and everything was above board, it would just be a different conversation. But we know that they didn't, and even if they license it tomorrow, it doesn't change the fact that folks went. They coerced a lot of people to get injected with an unlicensed product, so that's a big problem. Lauren, you mentioned the transgender thing, the reassignment surgery. It's so interesting because COVID. I never had it, but from what I understand, it knocks you out for 2 weeks.
Mm.
And then even if you get vaccinated, you still get sick. So if you're vaccinated and you get sick, you're fine. But if you're unvaccinated and you get sick, you're a problem. Right? According to the Department of Defense. They said everybody needs these injections because it's a readiness requirement so that we can send you overseas and we can move you around and deploy you. They ignore their own reports. The Navy had that battleship stuck on the harbor for 2 months because their 100% vaccinated crew caught COVID. So they were all down for 2 weeks. They were supposed to be sick for 2 weeks, but it's a cruise ship problem. So one guy gets it, and then it keeps spreading.
Circling
Yeah,
around.
yeah. So they had to
Oh.
that battleship or cruiser or whatever it was sidelined for 2 months, and the whole crew was 100% vaccinated.
Could you imagine what it must have been like to be on that boat? Like the smell. Oh. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. I
I
can't
didn't
even
join the Navy, so no. but 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 yeah,
that.
so as an unvaccinated member, if I get sick, all of a sudden I'm a problem. But or I can't deploy and all these things. But the transgender surgery, it takes a service member out for at least a year, if not longer. So during that surgery process, they can't deploy, right? So they're telling me as an unvaccinated member, I can't deploy because I'm unvaccinated. But if I was to, and I gotta get out of the military because I can't deploy. But if I was to go for gender reassignment surgery, I would be undeployable for an entire year, and that's totally kosher. It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's quite unbelievable. This past 2 years has become really just unflippin' believable with how all of the rules have changed. Everything that we seem to have known is now gone. Well, I really appreciate your time. Is there any closing remarks that you wanted to leave us on?
Uh, yeah, I guess the last thing I'll mention. I mean, yeah, the mandate's over, right? But most of the folks that are unvaccinated are still being harassed. The military is making the vaccine deployment requirement. Um, we're doing they're trying to get the booster to replace all of the vaccines that are available. So things are going to be interesting. I don't know what we're going to see here pretty soon, but yeah, actually, I'm in a conversation right now. The paralegal's texting me saying green light. The attorney and paralegal gave me the green light for donations. This
Oh
is
yeah,
this
can we put their
Yeah,
donation link? And yeah, do you want to? So can you tell Henry what the name of the firm
yeah.
is and stuff?
Yeah, so it's he's Dale Saran. He's independent. I'm waiting for the link right now, and then I'll give it to you guys.
And what's your
Um,
opinion on it? Have you seen any like issues where service members were getting sick and therefore unable to come to work since the job, and having a decrease in men available because of sickness due to the job?
so so as far as I know that we wrote a couple of my colleagues wrote a report that they submitted to Congress. About the vaccine injuries that they like service member vaccine injuries. I know there was one pilot that was grounded for like 5 to 6 months, right? So he was told, get the jab or you don't fly. Went and got the jab and was grounded for 5, 6 months. So of course, so we're dealing with stuff like that. And I mean, look, the report was 81 pages. I don't have everybody's individual story in my head, but that's one example. There was another service member that had 4 strokes right after the vaccination, like kind of in a row.
Oh
Um,
wow.
and so I don't know if I don't know what she's up to these days, or if she's fully back to work. But I mean, if they're getting injured, like no, I don't think they're serving at 100%.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they have issues now they got to deal with.
And then obviously the military would have to continue paying them during their injury, right? And
Uh, well, I mean, while they're still in service, yeah, they have TRICARE, but it starts getting interesting once they're out of the service and how to make those, injury claims. Currently, the VA, Veterans Affairs, is
ugh,
not touching the vaccine injury folks. They're kind of
oh no.
they don't know how to deal with it.
So like, so
It's not a claimable.
if you become disabled because of that, you're not going to get like a disablement percentage.
That's just honestly, it's kind of outside my like lane understanding. What I do know for sure is that right now the VA doesn't have a way to deal with vaccine injury claims. And I just dropped the link for the donations in the
Oh,
private chat.
great. Okay, Henry, go ahead and put that on the screen for us and then on the chat, and please pin it, and we'll put it in the comments and we will pin it there as well. Henry.
And so that link that I sent you is specifically for the lawsuit that I'm a part of. Like, they have a bunch of different lawsuits, but that one's specifically for Wilson versus Austin.
Okay,
So
great.
yeah.
And Henry, can you put that on the screen too, if you don't mind? There we go. Perfect. Okay, so it's pinned to the chat. It is on the screen, and that way, if anybody is watching this in the future, because we get a lot of people watching later, we had, so we have a lot of guests watch later because it's kind of late for some people. So
Sure.
thank you so much
Yeah,
for
thanks for having me.
coming. And where can people follow you?
I'm on Twitter. That's probably the best place. That's where I'm doing all the raging these days.
David
So,
Beckerman on
yeah,
Twitter.
David Beckerman 0. So that's where I'm making all like where I'm telling people. I'm also on Substack too, actually. And I'm
Oh, cool.
writing. Yeah, I'm writing. I'm basically writing, talking about the legal violations and how things came to be. Timelines. I love timelines. Timelines to me tell the story. My girlfriend hates them, but to me, it's like I don't have to make the argument when it's in a timeline. You can kind of see how it plays out
Right.
on
Yes,
your own.
very true. And
Yeah.
they're very helpful in court sometimes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thanks.
David.
Thanks. Oh, actually, one last plug.
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
She's the paralegal texts me. The all of the history behind like mandates and EUAs and all that stuff. The attorney wrote about in a book. It's called the best way to find it is to search his name on Amazon, Dale Saran, like Saran wrap.
Okay, let's take the time to do that.
Okay,
Dale
sure.
Saran,
Sure.
Henry, can you please look up Dale Saran, and then we'll post his link on this screen, and we'll put it in. If you put it in the private chat first,
Sure.
she'll
So
appreciate that.
the
But
book outlines the history with anthrax, with the original mandates, the original legal violations, and how the military said, "Hey, we're never going to mandate an EUA again." And technically, they didn't. They mandated a licensed product and just never made the licensed product available. So they they maneuvered around the law.
yeah, we like to do that.
Yeah.
We'll give Henry a little bit more time to find said book. Do you know the name of the book?
Yeah, so it's United States versus Members of the Armed Forces: The Truth Behind the DoD's Anthrax Vaccine Program. It's a long title, but the history is good.
The history sounds good. Have you read it yet?
I'm up to chapter 10, so I gotta so about halfway through.
Otherwise, I'd quiz you. It'd be like, really, what was?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Alrighty. Let's give him one more minute to try to find that link. So, what are you gonna do for the rest of the night?
Eat, relax, take a break. Probably head to bed here soon. I'm on the West Coast, so it's 8 p.m. for us.
Oh yeah, I'm on the West Coast as well.
Right on.
Okay, it looks like he found it. So can you pin that and put that into the screen? Perfect. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, David.
Thanks for having me.
This was fun. Really appreciate your service, and definitely go check him out on Twitter, everybody. All right.
See ya later.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.